Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for allowing us to come out. Dear Lord, we thank you for your protection. We thank you for your mercy and your grace, dear Lord. Be with us as we go through this evening, and we love and appreciate you. Amen.
Amen. All right, let's all stand and we're going to sing. We're going to sing Tell It to Jesus. And we're waiting. And that is number... Okay. Are you weary? Are you heavy hearted? Tell it to Jesus. Tell it to Jesus. Are you grieving over joys departed? Tell it to Jesus alone. Tell it to Jesus. Tell it to Jesus. He is a friend that will know. No other such a friend or brother, tell it to Jesus alone. The tears flow down your cheeks unbidden, tell it to Jesus, tell it to Jesus. Have you sins that too many times are hidden? Tell it to Jesus alone. Tell it to Jesus, tell it to Jesus, He is a friend that's unknown. You know other such a friend or brother, tell it to Jesus alone. Do you fear the gathered clouds of sorrow? Tell it to Jesus, tell it to Jesus. Are you anxious? What shall be tomorrow? Tell it to Jesus alone. Tell it to Jesus. Tell it to Jesus. He is a friend that's well known. You know other such a friend or brother. Tell it to Jesus alone. Troubled at the thought of dying, tell it to Jesus, tell it to Jesus. For Christ coming, kingdom are you sighing? Tell it to Jesus alone. Tell it to Jesus, tell it to Jesus. He is a friend that's well known. You know other such a friend or brother, tell it to Jesus alone. Okay, you may be seated. I will tell you this. In my life, I've done this. If I have a problem, I can tell Rebecca, I can tell my friends, I can tell my kids. But you know what? It don't do much good. But I can tell Jesus, and He can do something about it.
Amen.
And you know what? If you don't like something about me, if you think I'm doing something wrong, you're welcome to tell me. I won't take offense at it. But you'll have to work real hard to offend me. But the fact of the matter is, instead, if you see your brother fall, the Primitive Quartet had this song that says, "Go and tell Jesus on me, for my faults and failures you see. If you are my brother, don't go tell another. Go tell Jesus on me." If we were to take our griefs and our disappointments and our heartbreaks and the things we didn't like and we take them to Jesus, guess what's going to happen? Number one, you're going to feel kind of silly about praying about it. Number two, Jesus is the only one that's going to be able to do anything about it anyway. Number three, you ain't going to be spread a bunch of gossip about stuff. So we got a lot to pray about. It's our midweek prayer service. Generally, we jump right into the Bible study, but I want to have time to request prayer. Remember little Calissa? It's not been diagnosed yet, hasn't it?
No, they said that they're double checking that. I don't think they're 100% sure.
Little Calissa looks like she might have leukemia. That is a horrible thing. And I love that little girl, and I don't want anything to happen to her. Let's just remember her in prayer. Let's remember that God uses us to reach the family. Let's also remember Betty and Laura, they're coming back on Friday. It kind of scares me. They're on the road for 6 hours to get back, and I'm just worried about that. And remember me, there's this huge project that the DHR secretary says will be done by next Friday, even though the company we're doing stuff with said it would take 3 months to set it up. They're pushing to have it done on Friday, so everybody's running around like their hair is on fire. So it's been kind of stressful work. Any other outspoken prayer requests?
Please pray for Donna. I don't know what she did or how it's happened, but she's had a problem on her side nerve. She barely walked, and right before I came, she went into a rage of tears. She got up and about fell, and her leg was hurt so bad that she was sitting and crying. She went up for a massage yesterday. She gets a massage with the massage. That massage just couldn't do nothing with her. Couldn't hardly touch her leg and stuff. It's sort of fine. I don't know what the problem is. I just pray that he's good. Living when they ain't happy in their like that, it's not a happy place to be.
There's an old saying, and you remember my wife's back here to listen to you.
I remember something. I was real mad about what I was saying. I don't want her to get me too.
There's an old saying that says, if mom ain't happy, nobody happy.
But then on the other hand, I feel so blessed to be here. I feel like God has blessed me. I feel good. Me and that little dog we're not walking far, a couple miles a day, and I feel good. I don't have any problems. And, I feel just opposite of what she's going through. I'm really feeling blessed. I just want to praise and thank the Lord Jesus Christ for that.
Well, remember our state, it seems like every 5 minutes they're coming out and saying, no, there's another 50 cases here, 100 cases there. So it's spreading pretty fast, and people are getting kind of nervous about it. I hope that it won't happen, but there is a chance that they might start closing things down again.
I want to ask you about that.
So it might happen.
Went to Kroger today, they weren't wearing masks out there this evening. Donna said she got it this morning.
The thing is that there is an executive order that says that if you're in close proximity, you need to wear a mask. The reason I'm not is, number one, I would suffocate if I was up here teaching or preaching in a mask. Number two, there's at least 8 feet between me and the next person, But we need to remember that. Anybody else have a prayer request?
Just remember Mindy, Stephanie, Stella, we were
Let's look to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to be in your house. Lord, I come and offer up all these prayer requests. Lord, I pray for little Calissa. Lord, I pray that the doctors be wrong and that she's perfectly healthy. Lord, if she is sick, I pray, Lord, that you would touch her little body, that you would heal her. Lord, I pray that this situation would cause her family to come to you, Lord, even more than what they already are. And I pray, Lord, that you would just be with Donna, her problem, her side nerve. I pray for Mindy, Stephanie, and Bella. Lord, I pray for our state. I pray for our country, for all the stuff that's going on, Lord. I pray for all the folks who are getting sick in this pandemic that's going around. I pray, Lord, that you would just help us. Lord, I pray for this nation. I pray for our little church. I pray, Lord, that you would always help us to serve you. I pray that you grow our numbers and help us in this time. Father, I pray for the lesson that you just bless it, and everything we say and do just lifts up the name of Jesus. Lord, I pray that you forgive me of any sin, Lord, so I'll be a clean vessel to be used to you. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
we do one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I work with a bunch of people who aren't saved, who don't know the Lord. Be with them and pray that I might live the life and say whatever God has me to say before.
If we're being generous, and I mean really generous, about 10% of the population are Christian. That's generous. The fact of the matter is, the vast majority of people that you run into are lost. And there are those that even know it, and they don't care. They have no interest.
You're right.
Part of it is the affluence of this country. We are a rich country. The poor people in this country live better than the rich people in other countries. They're very affluent. They have everything they need. All their creature comforts are met. And so they don't have a reason to look up for God. And usually people find God in the middle of a trying circumstance. You know what I mean? When they reach the end of themselves. We don't let people reach the end of themselves anymore, it seems like. We always try to blame their circumstances on other things. But we try to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to all people, regardless. If you have your Bibles, turn in Genesis 33, or you can just look up on the screen because we're going to put it all up there. Baptist Fellowship is going to be this Friday, so we'll come on out. I'm looking forward to it. No food afterwards, so eat before you come. Scott Bowman is going to be preaching. We're going to have a special piano player, so I'm looking forward to that. Carla K. Hoskins is going to be playing for us. All right, so last time we saw Jacob, if you remember, Jacob had been struggling with the fact that he had just left Laban and now he's going to meet his brother. They said, hey, we found your brother. He's on his way here with 400 men. He's like, oh, he didn't forget all the dirty stuff I've done to him. He's here to hurt me. That's the only reason you have 400 men. And so we wrestled with God all night long. God put his leg out of joint. Whenever you meet the Lord, he will give you a new name. Dave, you used to be known as a drug addict. You used to have a pretty bad reputation around. And now you struggle with the Lord, you met the Lord, and you walk differently than you did before. And you got a different name than you had before. See, before they knew you as Dave the druggie. Now they say Dave's that crazy Christian guy's talking about Jesus all over the place, and everybody knows who you are based on your new walk, right? Likewise, God changed the name of Jacob from Jacob, which means the supplanter or the deceiver, to that of Israel, which means one who wrestles with God. So, picking up in verse 33, the narrative continues, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and beheld Esau came with his 400 men, and he divided the children and Leah, and unto Rachel, unto the 2 handmaidens. And he put, verse 2, and he put the handmaidens of their children foremost, Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. So as the day broke, after he got done wrestling with God and God changed his name, he goes and he looks, and out there on the horizon, he can see this big group of folks coming in. He says, all right, it's time. Now before he had the idea of spreading out the family, right? And I got it so that the family, if one of them gets hit with the army, the other one can run away. But he does something different now. He orders his family in rank of the wives, right? So he puts them in the ranking order of the wives. The handmaidens were first. Now those were his wives. They were the handmaidens of the 2 wives, but they were his wives. They were married to him, right? They were lesser wives. Then came Leah. Now she should, because she was his first wife, be the highest ranking, but he didn't put her in that order. He put the one that he was wanting to marry, Rachel. He put her at the last because it went in order of the wives. And he separated the family differently. He didn't do this. Wasn't necessarily as a defensive move. It was something else. Let's look at verse 3. And he passed over before them, and he bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. Now something changed in Jacob. Before, Jacob was cowering in fear. Before, Jacob was a liar. Before, Jacob was all these things. And now Israel, he sees his brother coming. He sets his family in array. And it says he got out in front of them. He was leading the caravan. He came first. That if anything happened, he was going to be the one that bore the brunt of it before anybody else. That's something different, isn't it? We didn't see that before. And now Israel, or Jacob, he's bowing himself down to the ground 7 times. That is That is the way that you show deep respect in their culture. That's what you did before a king or somebody in high authority. And the same brother that he tricked and he swindled, the same brother he's showing respect, right? Verse 4, and Esau ran to meet him. Now, the verse gives it away, but I wish we could just cover part of the verse just for this. But can you imagine Esau running up to meet you? And what's going through your mind is, well, I bought his birthright for a bowl of soup. I tricked him out of his blessing. He was going to kill me. Now this guy's running at me. But instead of getting what he deserved, instead of getting the response he expected, his brother ran up to him and hugged him, threw his arms around him, fell upon his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So he was like, I missed you, brother, and he's hugging him. And Israel, Jacob, I guarantee you the first second that happened, he's kind of confused. He's like, wait a minute, I thought you was going to kill me. I was expecting to die when you ran up to me. Now you're giving me a hug. And verse 5, and he lifted up his eyes. One of the things the Bible does is it doesn't clarify its pronouns. You have to read things a little bit carefully. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children and said, Whose are those with thee? He looked up his eyes, he being Esau. He looked up and he saw the entourage of the children. He saw all the kids. Now, I guarantee you, if you have a mama and the kids, who's going to be at the front of the line? It ain't going to be the mama. Mama's going to be in the back of the little tiny ones, but if the kid is over 5 years of age, they're going to bolt right to the front of the line, aren't they? So, he saw the children and he saw the women, and he said, Whose are these with thee? He says, okay, who's all this, folks? Who are these? And then Jacob said, the children which God hath graciously given, I couldn't say that, given thy servant. He says, these are my kids. These are the kids. Now listen to this. These are the kids God graciously gave me. Your kids, as aggravating as they can be, your kids, as frustrating and expensive and time-consuming as they may be, are a gracious gift of God, aren't they? Jacob, or Israel, realized that God had blessed him by giving him these children. And he put the blessing directly on God. And notice there he says, given thy servant. Jacob, once again, first he bowed down 7 times, and now he's saying thy servant. That's what you always did as a supplicant to the one you're asking something for. The lesser would say, I'm your servant, right? He was showing a great deal of respect to his older brother. That's only over by a couple of minutes, maybe, but still was his older brother, and he was showing him an enormous amount of respect. Now, is this a change from the last time they met? Well, last time they met, he was tricking he was putting lamb fur on his hands and wearing Esau's clothing so that his dad thought he was Esau. And that shows a great deal of disrespect to Esau. Now, you could say, well, Rebecca was the one who wanted to do it. That's true, it was. But you also have to understand that he's the one who did it. If your wife tells you to do something, and Rebecca was his mom, not his wife, and there's a thing about doing what your parents tell you to do. But if your mom tells you to rob a bank, you say, I love your mom, I'm not going to rob a bank. If your mom tells you to do something wrong, you don't do it. But so he was, what I'm saying is he was complicit in it, right? He was complicit in it. But now he's showing great respect to, now, Jacob knew he didn't deserve any forgiveness. He knew that Esau would be completely within his rights to kill him. And of course, part of this was trying to be as polite as possible so as not to enrage his brother anymore, so as not to take a chance of his brother killing him. So part of it is he's a changed man, and part of it is if you're going up against somebody bigger and stronger than you, it's nice to call them sir. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot safer if you treat them with respect, right? Verse number 6. And then the handmaidens came near. Like I said, he saw the women, but the kids got there first because they were just like, dude, this is something new, and there's no holding back. He had 12 sons, right? There's no holding these kids back. The older kids are going to be running off.
I don't think these older kids were, I think these, like Levi and them, they were old, they were teenagers.
Well, yeah, I mean, so his first child would have been, he'd been in the land for 20 years. He served 7 years and then he got married to Leah. So,
Possibility, the oldest would have been 20. Well, probably
would have been 20.
18 to 20.
If,
The thing about it is, these kids, the older they are, the more they're gonna come to his rescue and try to be at his side if they're at the age not to do that. They love their father, I'm sure, and they didn't want to see their father harm. And they didn't know about what was going on, so they were getting as close as they could. The younger ones were there to save the older ones. They might have been there for a little bit more support for the father.
well, I don't think he was alone either. I don't think back then, it's kind of like rich Hollywood people. Rich Hollywood people are never alone. Have you ever noticed that? They always have an entourage with them. Everywhere they go, there's a whole crew of people with them. And I think that's what was going on, is that there's a whole crew he had some servants with him and so forth. So, but anyway, so he says, and the handmaidens came near, and their children, and they bowed themselves. So, not only did Jacob bow himself, but now his wives are bowing themselves, and the children too. And Leah also with her children, because remember, set them up in 3 groups. So first the handmaids, and now Leah's coming up. Leah and her children also came near and bowed themselves. Then after Joseph and Rachel, they bowed themselves. The whole family came up, and they were showing respect to old Uncle Esau. They were all showing respect to this man, and he was glad to see his brother. I don't think Esau had any ill intention at this point. It is amazing what time will do to hurt feelings. When somebody does you wrong, you have 2 choices. You can either let it go or you can brood on it. If you brood on it, it's going to turn into bitterness in your soul and it's going to eat you out. Being bitter is like you drinking poison to hurt somebody else. It doesn't hurt somebody else, it just hurts you. And so Esau, I think, maybe for the first 5 or 10 years, he was as mad as a wet hen, just counting the days until he can kill him or whatever. And then I think that over time, he started to calm down and he forgave his brother. I honestly believe he did. Now Esau still, I don't believe is what you would call a saved man. I believe that Esau was a worldly man. I believe that Esau was a believer in strength and what strength can do. Esau was a hunter. The second person that called a hunter in the Bible, the first one was Nimrod, who was an evil man. But here's the thing: this man, I think, actually forgave his brother. Jacob didn't forget about it. It's kind of like, well, when I was little, I don't remember what I done, but I done something Mom was going to whip me for, and I ran away because I was faster than she was, and so I ran outside. She looked at me and hollered after me. She says, "You have to come home sometime." About an hour and a half later, I come diddy-bopping in the house. I had already forgotten about the whole thing. She hadn't forgotten about it. You know what I mean? Jacob, though, instead of him forget, it was kind of a reverse situation. That Jacob had wronged Esau, and he was coming back with fear and trepidation and scared to death of what his brother's going to do, and his brother had already put it all behind him. How many sleepless nights did he spend because he was tore up about what he done with Esau, and he was afraid of what Esau was going to do? Verse number 8, and he said, "What meanest thou by all this droves which I met?" And he said, "These are to find grace in thy sight." Esau's confused with the gifts. He's like, he said all these things. He questions him. He says, "Why do you feel compelled to give me gifts? What do you mean by this? Are you trying? What's going on? I don't understand it." And then Jacob told him the truth for once. He says, Basically, I'm trying to buy you off so you don't kill me. He didn't say that in that many words. He says, I'm trying to find grace in your sights. I hope that those would smooth things over between us. I know I've done you wrong. And so I'm trying to make up for it in this little way. By the way, if you've done somebody wrong, it's good to ask for forgiveness. It's better to make it right if you can. If you steal something from somebody, saying you're sorry is a good thing. Giving them the thing back you stole is better. You know what I mean? And saying you're sorry and giving them the thing back is even better yet. The point is Jacob here is trying. He gave him these gifts. Number one, just pure, unadulterated self-preservation. If I give all these gifts to my brother, then he won't kill me. That's what his goal was. So then Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that which thou hast to thyself. He says, listen, man, I got enough. I don't need this, man. I've got plenty. I don't need what you have, okay? And so Esau is the epitome here of graciousness. Not only was he the wrong party, he didn't demand Jacob give him an apology. He didn't demand that Jacob fall down and worship him. He didn't demand any gifts from him or him to pay him back. Instead, he embraced him, cried, and then he says, I don't want your gifts, give it back. Then Jacob said in verse number 10, Nay, I pray thee, if now I found grace in thy sight, then receive my presents at my hand. For therefore I've seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. He said, you don't understand. Take my gifts. I don't want you to give them back. I want you to have them. I've seen your face. From the time I left Laban, I was absolutely sure that I'm going to see that ugly face that was on your face when you figured out what I'd done to you. That look that says I'm going to kill you. And then I saw that face that you had, that face that says all is forgiven. And he says, it's like I saw the face of God. In other words, what the man was saying is, that I talked to God about this last night. And I poured out my heart. And when I saw you, it was like I saw God's own face because he answered my prayer. You ever been so grateful that God answered your prayer you couldn't even talk? I mean, there's been times in my life that God has answered a prayer and it like just smacked me right in the face and just dumbfounded me how he done it. He says, you were pleased with me. I'm so glad that you forgave me. This is the least I can do. And then verse number 11, take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Then he urged him, and he took it. So Jacob and Esau are trying that thing here. No, I'll pay for dinner. No, I'll pay for dinner. No, your money's no good here. I won't pay for dinner. Hey, you just put that away. I told you I was going to. That's basically what they were doing, going back and forth. And Jacob finally wore him out. When they were younger, Jacob did everything in his power to take away everything that Esau had. He took away his blessing. He took away his birthright. He would have taken away everything he possibly could have. I think part of it was he was the younger brother, and the younger brother typically is jealous of the older, right? But in this case, he had tried to take all this stuff. Now he was doing everything he can to be a blessing to his brother. He says, if you've really forgiven me, if everything is fine, just take my present. He says, God has blessed me. Once again, man has changed. He didn't think that he was the one who had done all this to come up with this wealth. He realized that it was God that was blessing him. It wasn't that he said, man, I was really slick. I had a bunch of good business deals. I tricked this person. And he said, God bless me. And because God blessed me so much, I have enough. I can give you this stuff. And so his brother took it. Verse number 12. And he said, let us take our journey and let us go, and I will go before thee. Esau said, I'll tell you what, I brought these 400 guys. My job is we're going to escort you back home. You see, I got enough soldiers here. Nobody's going to mess with us. We're going to be fine. And I'm really going to enjoy being with my brother. This is great. And so Jacob already, number one, he had a bad taste about being with family. He went with Uncle Laban for 20 years and didn't come out on the right side of that equation, right? It was a pretty bad time. So verse 13, he says unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and the herds are young with me. And if the men should overdrive them, then one day all the flocks will die. So now, I appreciate the offer. But I got all these little kids, you know how slow they go. And I got some new lambs over here. We can't push them too hard. And you're going to go a lot faster. In order for us to keep up, we have to push them really hard. It can cause the lambs to die, and the kids, they just won't take it. Were these real concerns?
Yes.
They were real concerns.
Yes.
Was that why he didn't want his brother to escort him?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because I would have said, hey, wonderful, but listen, I got all this stuff, we need to go slow. His brother said, okay. That's all he had to say. Is, hey, we got to go kind of slow because I got this and this and this. Is that cool? His brother would say, fine. But instead, that's not what happens. You see, number one, while he's still trusting God, he still remembers what he had done. Have you ever done something wrong to somebody and they've forgiven you, but you haven't forgiven you for what you've done to them? In other words, it doesn't enter into their mind, but it sure does enter into yours, and you can't forget what they have forgotten. I think that's what the situation is here. Let my Lord, once again, he's doing this as polite as he possibly can. Calling him Lord is an honorific. He's showing him honor. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come into my Lord unto Seir. Jacob tells him that he can go faster. We can't go as fast as you want to go, so you go ahead and we'll catch up. Now, I want you to notice something. Where did he say that he was going to go? Seir. Let's find out where he goes. In Genesis 33:15, and Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folks that are with me. And he says, What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau makes another offer. He says, all right, fine. If you're going to need to go slow, that's fine. But at least let me leave a couple hundred guys here so to make sure you get there safe. I don't want anybody to hijack you in the way and steal your stuff. And he says, what is it? Why? I don't need this.
He's playing the bigger brother, protective card.
He was, but at the same time, he was being hospitable, which in the desert climate, when you had to grow your own food, and if somebody didn't provide hospitality to you, you could die. It was in their culture. You did not be rude to people, and you always extended them hospitality. His brother was extending to him hospitality, and he was refusing it. So he says, what does it need? What needeth it? He says, that's not necessary. Don't let this bother you. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I don't need, it's fine. I don't need your soldiers. It's fine. Now Jacob is trusting God, so he meant it when he said it wasn't necessary. I honestly believe he didn't think it was necessary, but there was also, sometimes you can lie and tell the truth and have the same sentence, can't you? Jacob, his motivation, we're going to see here in a minute, he was still upset about what happened. He was still feeling bad about what happened. He was still scared about what happened. And he didn't want to go with his brother because I believe he was afraid. So Esau returned that day, verse 16, on his way to Seir. Now Seir is a forested mountainous region that was east of the Dead Sea. So Esau headed south from this point. Where did Jacob say he was going to go? Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth. Okay, hold on a minute. You just said, hey, you go ahead and I'll meet you in Seir. Where did he go? He didn't go to Seir. He went to Succoth, right? And built him a house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. Esau went south, so where did Jacob go? He went north. Succoth means temporary shelters or booths, and he called that because of the temporary stuff he built there for his cattle. The Bible doesn't indicate that Jacob and Esau spent any time until much later when they were burying their father. Here's the thing. Jacob let the things that happened in the past keep him and his brother apart. And I don't know if Jacob and Esau were to be reconciled, if Jacob and Esau would have spent time together, if Jacob would have shared his faith, the faith of their father and their grandfather, do you think Esau the Bible would say, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated? Why did God say he hated Esau? Because the sin that the descendants of Esau that became because of the way he lived. He wasn't living right. I'm thinking that Jacob, because he could have had an influence on his brother. That's true, his brother could have had an influence on him to the negative, but I'm just saying that instead of taking an opportunity to try to be a light and a witness, he ran the other way. Verse number 18, and Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is by the land of Canaan, and when he came in from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. Now, some of the commentaries I read said this is about 10 years between verse 17 and 18. He stayed for a while in Shechem, and then he came to Shalem. Now, the Shalem, one of the word kind of means safely, right? So some people says he went safely to the city of Shechem. That's not the way the Bible reads. I believe it was a city, and they call it like Safety City, so to speak. You know what I mean? We have a city named Big Ugly, so I mean, people name things weirdly. But he didn't live inside of the city. He cast his tent on the outside, and he bought a parcel of a field where he had pitched his tent at the hand of Hamor and Shechem's father for 100 pieces of money. Now, so unlike the other urban campers today that you see, he actually paid for the land that his tent was on. Jacob wasn't going to take something for free. And Jacob pitched his tent, had his animals, and he became an important person in the area. And verse number 20, and we'll finish up here, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion. And he erected an altar there and called it El Eloshi Israel. And he built an altar, just like his dad did, just like his grandfather did. Don't think for a second that your service to God is overlooked by your kids. Abraham worshiped the Lord, and Isaac took notice, didn't he? Isaac noticed. You can try to tell your kids, both of y'all, all of our kids, I'm the only one with younger kids, but still, people watch your lives more than they listen to your words. And your life has more of an impact on people than the words that you say.
Actions speak louder.
Absolutely. Abraham believed God, and that he didn't just believe God, he worshiped God. His kids saw him worship God. Well, kids, he had multiple kids. But the point of it is, it made an impact on Isaac. Isaac came along, and Jacob and Esau saw Isaac worshiping God, building altars, serving the Lord. And guess what? It made an impact on them too. And now Jacob, his religion has become his. He's become serious about it. He makes an altar, and Jacob worshiped the Lord. And his kids are noticing. Now, his kids are going to be all over the place. But don't misunderstand this. His kids make up the nation of Israel. All the Jews from the beginning of time trace their way all the way back to this guy here. And their great-great-great-great-grandfathers watched him as he built an altar. And he called it El Oshi Israel. El, as we know, means God. So it means the God. It means God. The God of Israel. Right? He's saying the God. Not a God, not one of the pantheon of gods, not one among many gods, the God, the only God, the only existent God, the self-existent one, the creator of everything that exists, that God. He says, that big God, the God above everybody and everything else, that God is my God. El Israel. The God who is the God of Israel, because Israel is the new name that he had after God changed his name. He was the God of his dad, he was the God of his grandfather, but now he is by building this altar. He's admitting publicly, it's not just my dad and my granddad's God. He is my God. He learned to trust. First, the God of his dad became his God when he met him at Bethel. And then his God, he learned to trust him and to take him seriously when he was wrestling with him. And he learned to trust him and he learned to rely on him. Now, this God, who is the God of everything, is the God of Jacob. Jacob, like a lot of people in your Bible, isn't a perfect person. He has a lot of mistakes and foibles. His kids messed up just like they are. There's not a single person in the world who is perfect. If you look for a perfect person, if you think somebody's perfect, you haven't examined their life deeply enough. That's just the truth. But Jacob trusted God, and he passed that trust down to his kids, who passed it on to their kids. And it was imperfect, and there was a lot of mistakes. And a lot of people did bad things. We're going to find out here shortly, the kids are going to start just messing up and doing horrible things. Just because you're saved don't mean you're always right. But Jacob had decided that the God was his God. We need to realize that the God is our God too.
Amen.
And any comments?
Look, I interpreted the lesson a little bit different than you did. And I understand exactly what you're saying, and exactly what you're saying makes a lot of sense. But for instance, when Esau went a different direction, he hadn't been seen for 20 years, and that was his place to live. He didn't know what his plans for the future was. Maybe he was planning to go there all along. I'm not sure that he knew that Jacob was even coming up the road when him and his 400 men straight along. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that would work, but I want you to notice here. Let me look. Look at verse 13. Splash 13 up there, huh? Pastor Kenny, he always say, splash that verse up there.
And the humbleness of Jacob, I remind myself that he'd been gone for 20 years, and he came into the land that he knew that he lived before, but his brother was the man. His brother was the head of the land at that time. So you don't come in fighting a battle. You got to come in and humble yourself to the person that's in charge.
But look here, 14. When he says, "I'm going to pass softly, let them go before me, and the children able to come until I come unto." Next slide. Look down one. Unto my Lord, and where he just told his brother, "You go on ahead, and I'll meet you in Seir."
I don't think he had any intentions of going this year.
I don't think he did either, because he went to Shechem instead.
Because I think I have to look at a map, but I kind of figured he was actually headed home to Dad.
He what?
He was heading home to Dad, to his father.
Now, I will tell you, the Bible's giving the big picture of things. He could have went to see him. He could have went to see him. He could have spent some time with his brother. They could have reconciled. And then he says, I need to, too much of us here. We need better grasslands. I'm going to move over yonder. Could have been. Don't know. Personally, if I had spent 20 years away, I'm going to spend some time introducing the grandparents to the kiddies. I'm going to introduce them, show them where the old swimming hole and all that stuff.
And I understand that, but I spent time away, and when I went home, I spent time with mom's house, my brothers and sisters. Everybody took a day or two before I seen when I was drifted in, and they had their lives, and they were moving on with their lives. And
yeah.
I just wasn't that important that they had to stop everything they were doing and take a week off to be a bee. It just didn't work that way.
Well, my point is,
when you discuss this and talk about this, this is the way I see this.
Right.
Because of my past, the things that I've seen in life. And he could have took a week off, a month off. He was very rich, both of them was very rich, and they could have sit around. But after 20 years, he's been on this land for 20 years. Does he not have things to do? And it's hard telling what he had planned by going south in the first place. I'm not sure he went just to avoid him. Maybe he just went because that's what he had planned to do, and it was a need for him to get it done.
But why would?
Or it could have been to put a spiritual application to this. It could be because because of his relationship with God now, and he knew that Esau was, a person of the land and not following the one true God. I don't want to hurt his feelings and not say I'm not coming, but I don't want to expose myself and my family to the world.
Well, Jacob was going home, and I sure seen his father, and, he was more than welcome. I think Esau was sincere in his welcome. I can't speak for, but that's just the way I interpret things, and that's the way we interpret things different sometimes. And was it Jacob said that he'd see him there, or was it Esau said that he'd see Jacob, in the city?
What he said there in 14,
Who's he?
Jacob said.
Jacob said, Esau didn't say it.
I know, Jacob said, basically, you go on ahead, you go on ahead before your servant, and I'll lead on softly, as fast as a kid and a camel can take, and you go on before me and go to see her. Until I come unto my Lord and see her. He says, I'm going to come unto you and see her. But the Bible tells us they didn't come unto see her. So, now,
Say something?
sure, Bob.
Jacob had all these animals, this wealth too, and so did Esau. Maybe Jacob was wanting to get his stuff settled before he went to Esau, so he wouldn't have to take all his stuff with him.
Right, it could be. One other option, this is just something to think about. What was Jacob's name? What did it mean?
Deceiver.
Now, if you wanted to destroy somebody, which would be the trickier way to do it? Go up to somebody and attack them on the way when they're kind of expecting it, or hug them and say, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. It's a wonderful thing. Come on back to the house." And as soon as you get back to the house, they're going to be trapped and killed.
We're talking about family here, and let me back up with this, because this is something else I had a little problem with. When Jacob stole his birthright, he told him what he wanted, and Esau said that was okay. And Esau was old enough to understand what he was doing.
Yes, he was.
Esau acted like he didn't really care about his birthright. 20 years later, he's been on this land, and he's did everything with his father and stuff. Does he feel like that he's given up his birthright? Does he feel like that he's lost anything? I don't think he's out to hurt Jacob in the least.
I don't either.
Jacob knows that he did wrong, but we talked about that, and I don't think it was as much as it was his intent. He would have took advantage of him, but his mother was pushing him and helping him every step of the way.
Well,
He had an encouragement there.
from what I read in the Bible, I have no reason to believe that Esau was going to do anything to his brother.
Exactly.
What my point is the deceiver, okay, the liar always assumes they're being lied to. The thief is afraid of being stolen from.
Exactly.
Jacob, having been the trickster, is expecting his brother to trick him.
Let me ask you a question.
His own guilt act, I guess is what I'm saying.
Who grew up in that story, Jacob or Esau?
Who what?
Who grew up in that story, Jacob or Esau?
Well,
I think
Esau.
Jacob grew up.
I think they both matured.
They both matured, but I think that Esau was probably the more mature at the time. He was young, and he was hunting, and he was trying to do things to support the family, where Jacob was just sort of glad to do what mom told him to do, and like you called him a mama's boy.
Yeah.
Jacob had to grow up. Jacob grew up when the rest of them died.
You know what's hilarious? When I was teaching about Jacob and Esau, about how Esau was an outside guy, we were downstairs, it was still streaming. We were downstairs in my office, and Rebecca was behind me on her computer. If y'all put a chance, and y'all know. But anyway, then Benny was sitting on the couch right in front of us, and he was listening with rapt attention. And then afterwards, he comes up to me and says, "You know, Dad, I'm a lot like Jacob. I'm an inside kind of a guy."
No, but that's just, I didn't say that, but that's the way I was interpreting things because of my experiences and the way I look at things.
So, I don't think Esau had any ill intention, but I do believe that Jacob, because of his guilty conscience, And because he was the trickster, and he had always taken advantage of people, and all that, he was expecting Esau to act the way he would have if the situations were reversed.
But he didn't know Esau after 20 years. He didn't know
Yeah.
Jacob was coming up on him.
I agree with you.
Like, you know, here.
But here's the thing. Back when I was in first grade, and this is a stupid story, I'm sorry, but this is, they had a snack, right? And they had a bag of popcorn and a thing of chocolate milk for snack. That was what you could have for a snack. And Mom would pay for my popcorn, and it was like 10 cents a day or something like that. But she hardly would ever buy me milk. Well, they told me that, they said, well, here, you're on the list to get milk today. And I wanted that milk. I really liked chocolate milk. I wanted it. But I thought they messed up. And I thought, there's no way Mom got me a chocolate milk. And so I gave it away. Even though I wanted it. Because I felt like it wasn't mine to take. You know what I mean? In other words, I deprived myself of something for no other reason than some crazy stuff going on inside of my
But
head.
that happens to everybody.
It does.
It does.
And I think that's what happened with Jacob. He and his brother had issues. And he had done things that he felt guilty about. And so he expected his brother to be upset with him. And when his brother wasn't upset with him, he was glad that his brother forgave him. But there was a part deep inside of his head saying, you know, he's only acting this way so he can get you back home and kill you. He's going to take everything you have, he's going to kill you. And so,
He was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
exactly. So that's why he said, you go on ahead, it's fine. And then I'm just going to go, you're going south, okay, I'll see you in a few. Okay, guys, we're going north. Because of what's going on inside his own head.
Well, you know, Esau when he was a kid and he was gossiping around, he was hunting, but he was just acting like a boy that would. And Jacob was into the foolishness and into the joke and the stuff. And, you know, Esau was a different man, and Esau grew up.
Yeah, he did.
And I understand what you're saying because I've been there. If I did somebody and I did people wrong, and I've had to think about that, and I pondered and come up on them. And I'm wondering, man, this guy's acting awful nice for some reason, you know, maybe. And then after we sat down and talked about it, and there was more forgiveness in him than there was in me. But, you know, the point being is when you said, and you gave the story, and I've read the story, I know what was coming. And it seemed like that Esau had grown mightily, and Jacob had grown up on his trip before he got there.
Yeah.
Because he was still acting childish and doing crazy things down the line. Of course, I know Laban wasn't treating him right in the first place, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Esau, he'd been on that land for 20 years, and when I come home, my brothers and them, they've been there for years, and I hadn't been. So I humbled myself before them. That was their place. That was there, and I'm coming into their place, and I'm gonna be humble, regardless of and they didn't take time to say, well, man, they're nice and I came over, ate a bite and kissed Mom and went on up the road. And they had things to do because they'd been there and that's where their life was rooted at. And that's just the way I was looking at this when you was describing it, when you was bringing it through from the Bible. And I understand what I'm hearing, but that's the way I decided things.
One thing that does stick out to me, sometimes the Bible just tells you stories. And there's not a huge lot of spiritual significance. But the thing that stuck out to me is the guy who used to hide. The guy who was scared to death. The guy who wouldn't stand up for himself until the very end after he ran away and got cornered by his father-in-law. That guy decided to stand out in front of everybody and be the first one to meet his brother.
But you gotta reach the side. You gotta say enough's enough. It's time for me to stand up and be a man. It's time, and you could see all that happening within Jacob and how he moved, and the things that he did and the things that he allowed to happen to him. Somewhere in that line, he has to say, okay, enough's enough. I'm a man, I need to stand up. When he left Laban, he didn't have no place to go, really. He had to go. To go back home that was a good choice. That was the proper choice. even though he feared what he might be facing at home. But it was his fear. I don't think it was ever Esau's in the first place.
You have anything, honey? Look like you're getting ready to say something. All right, well, God bless y'all, and we'll be dismissed, and, don't forget this Friday. David, would you dismiss us, please?
Thank you once again, Lord God, our Heavenly Father, for the precious opportunity, Father, that you give us to come together, Father, to praise and glorify and to learn of you, Lord God, Father. We thank you for the story of Jacob and Esau, Father, and the teachings that the pastor brought to us, Lord God, Father. We thank you for him. And we thank you for Brother Bobby being here, Father, and the preacher's wife, Father. Father, we ask that you continue to bless this day, Father, that you see us all home safely, Lord God. And Father, that we return at the next appointed time, Father.